Nolan, I'm sure Huckvale makes these up. Yes?
Another visitor. Stay a while.
What's this?
Forever.
What in the name of Satan's Porsche?
Hello?
Hello? What was that?
Bit of interference, I think.
I think you must have ghosts in the machine, Jim.
Have you got a Ouija board?
No.
No.
Why do you remember the time I came on about the fortune telling?
Yes.
Good, that, wasn't it?
No. What do you want tonight?
Well, I'm just a bit curious. Well, I know everyone's talking about it, but are you going to have a phone-in on this new show of yours?
There will be certainly an opportunity for punters to express themselves, those that are capable of doing so.
Oh, that's good, that, because you know last time I came on as a fortune teller, well, I was just fooling you, really. I'm not really a fortune teller at all.
Get away.
Well, I just know a few of your dark secrets, Jim.
You sure had me going there.
I know I did. Well, I've got many more secrets to tell, so I'll be coming on the airwaves all the time.
You don't work on the bins in Prestwich, do you?
No.
No, oh, fair enough. You wouldn't know about that, then.
So I'll be on, like, so... I was wondering, actually, I was hoping, I've been hoping for a while you'd get on the telly, become a bit of a megastar.
Well, you and me both. If there's anyone in show business listening, then, you know where to get hold of me.
Could have get in the news of the world, then. The secrets of Jim Reeve.
Look, I'm sorry, you seem to feel that you have some sort of hold over me, Mr. Nolan. You're not related to Paul Nolan, are you?
No, of course not.
No.
Well, I have many of your secrets, Jim. I have inside information.
Oh, you do?
It's just, the television. I suppose your huge lack of talent will put paid to my hopes of becoming a millionaire with the news of the world.
Yes, that's, wait a minute, that was an insult.
I know you can't act, can you?
Push off. Wait a minute. Come on, give me an example. Give me an example of one of these secrets you have.
No, you'll have to wait, Jim. I've got to sort them out now. Sort the wheat from the chaff, as they say.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But
wait for the...
You'll find out.
Wait for the film to come back from the chemists.
Seriously, though, I mean, are you going to become a Steve Pank now?
Oh, I sincerely hope not, no.
Well, you've always scoured at the disc jockey bit, haven't you?
Yeah, look, can I just explain something to you? This is an utterly new concept in radio presentation.
Right, enlighten me.
There won't be, ring in now, and if you can name a country beginning with A, you win a Ford Fiesta. There'll be none of that.
I hope so.
Right. This will be an all-action, rolling format, think of some of the radio words, quickly. Transistor, yeah, that sort of thing, programme. Great.
Yep.
Yes, indeedy. That's for me. Oh, dear. I wonder, is this all too ambitious? There will certainly be no Hamish Bruins on. Oh, well, now then, Minister, I wonder if perhaps we could get the views of one of our Scottish listeners who will sing Annie Laurie with his head in a bucket of trifle. Oh, I do hope this is all going to go terribly wrong. Yeah, well. Right, stand by, Bredbury's next.
Piccadilly Radio and Kennedy Street.
Right, Mr. Bagnall of Bredbury.
Evening, James.
Good morning.
You don't mind if I change the subject from James H Reeve to something else, do you?
Well, I'd prefer you didn't, but I suppose if that's all you've got...
You started off the programme tonight with a couple of calls about inner-city deprivation in Salford.
Well, no, with a couple of examples of it.
Well, yes. Yeah. Terrible tales of Salford disintegrating.
Yes.
The problem which I'd like to expound on is the lad who was having terrible problems in the council house.
Yeah.
Seemed to be putting up most of the Greater Manchester Police for most of the evening.
That's right. And they get a housing allowance, you know. They're obviously on the fiddle.
Well, yes. With the housing benefit cuts, I think he's just lost out.
Well, they're like these Euro MPs. You know, the ones that get £80 a night, board and lodge expenses, and they all sleep on the settee in their office. Did you know that?
Oh, you're going to be up in the libel court before long, James.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I merely repeat what I've seen in the newspapers, and they got away with it. I'll tell you something else as well that's been kept remarkably quiet today. You know, this the new benefit scheme, the social fund, and all this sort of thing. Apparently, it's falling apart. Absolutely collapsing.
Well, it collapsed on the first day that it came in.
Right.
From, what I understand about the way the DHSS has been struggling to handle it.
Right. A team from Nottingham University have reported on how the new scheme is faring, and they've said it's awful. The computers are absolutely cocked up. They're all programmed, I nearly, for the first time in 2.5 years, I very nearly blemished myself then. They are less than perfectly programmed. People are not getting the money because the computers don't know what to make of it. The whole thing is a fiasco, and he's going to recommend to the government that they change it. But we know what future-making recommendations this government has.
Well, surely that was the intention of the government in bringing the thing in anyway. The whole new benefits system was intended to be that difficult for people to understand that they wouldn't bother claiming.
So they'd give up and get a job instead?
Well, they'd give up and find some other way of living.
Become a window cleaner?
Yeah. Part of the black economy which is being boosted.
Right.
Anyway, back to this.
Fine.
This lad with the council house problem.
Yes.
Well, what I think I identified was the way that many local authorities are failing to handle the problems which exist on the council estates. The Salford aren't noted for being one of the most progressive housing authorities in the country.
Ooh. Hey, listen, I got a grumpy letter from a Salford councillor when I said that on the programme once.
Well, next time you get one, just tell him that it was a Stockport councillor who said it.
Ah. Well, we seem to have declared our interest then, don't we?
Right. But surely what local authorities should be doing at the present time is ensuring that where tenants are causing a nuisance for other tenants, and clearly one of the problems, apart from the Greater Manchester Police Force, which this lad was suffering, was other tenants, seemingly from what he was saying on the same estate, who were causing damage to his property.
Arguably, I mean, no one has been apprehended, so we don't know that for a fact.
Correct. But then that is going to depend on the council taking the matter seriously. And it appeared from what he was saying that he'd been given a brush off by the Salford Housing Department, who simply weren't interested in the problem, which is very often the attitude of the local housing authorities.
Well, if I might say so, Mr. Bagnall, that's a rather emotive way of putting it. They may, in fact, have not used those words.
I'm quite sure that they didn't use those words.
Indeed. We are unable to accommodate you at this moment in time, someone probably said. I do dislike people who say that.
As I said, they've been given a brush off.
Well, what's a word?
What worries me is that local housing authorities are going to have to change their attitude within the next couple of years with the changes which are coming in with the housing legislation, allowing tenants to opt out of local authority control. And opt either for housing associations or for private landlords.
Right.
And unless local authorities can be seen to be responsive to the tenants' needs, then they're going to finish up with no houses at all. Now, in the long term, that isn't going to be of much benefit to the tenants of the estates or to prospective tenants.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what the popular image is of council tenants. I'm going to tell you. There are two distinct ones. You correct me if... don't correct me if I'm wrong, but correct me if the impressions I'm about to describe to you do not exist. First of all, that council tenants are a lot of people who could easily afford to buy their own houses, but they prefer to live in cheap council accommodation. Many of them own Jaguar cars.
Usually a Rolls-Royce with coal in the bath, I think.
That's that sort of thing, yeah. And they're all working. There's 5 lads in that house, all bringing a wage home, and so on and so forth. The other is of a great swathe of the population who lives in council houses, which lives in council houses and is allowed to do exactly what it likes by the local authority. Very few of them pay any rent, they don't pay the electricity, they never get evicted, they never get turned out of the house. They just live in there, being subsidised by the rest of the ratepayers.
Right.
Now, am I correct in saying that those two images are popular?
Those two images are popular. The second one is usually expanded to include the fact that they're living off the rest of everybody else, that people's taxes are subsidising them, and so on.
Right. Now, perhaps you'd like to take this opportunity to redress the balance somewhat.
Well, certainly in the case of Stockport, indeed in most of the other local authorities in the country, tenant receives no subsidy from anybody else whatever.
What if they don't pay the rent?
Sorry?
What if they don't pay the rent?
If they don't pay the rent, the only people who are subsidising them are the other council tenants.
Mm-hmm.
If they're on housing benefit, they receive taxpayers' money, just as somebody in the private sector on housing benefit would receive the taxpayers' money.
Right.
But the average council tenant receives no financial assistance from everybody else. The council housing is required by most local authorities to at least cover its costs, if not make a profit. And under the new legislation which is coming in, that will be the law of the land, that the rates or the poll tax, as it will not be able to subsidise the council house running expenses.
Mm-hmm. Right, fair enough then. What was the point of all this?
The other stereotype which comes in, which you were mentioning about the Rolls Royce and the coal in the bath, frankly, it doesn't really matter whether there are 5 people bringing in a wage into a council house or not. If they're not receiving subsidy from anybody else, it's no matter of anybody else whether they prefer to rent a house rather than to buy one.
What if they are renting a relatively cheap house from the council and could afford to buy their own, whereas someone who can't get a council house is having to live in overpriced private accommodation? Hello?
Yes, in the sense that most local authorities have housing which is available, although it may not be particularly desirable housing, the choice still remains. But inevitably you're going to get a reduction in the number of council houses which are available for people who are not in the system at the present time through the government legislation. And really that sort of argument should be aimed at the government for reducing the council sector.
Oh, I entirely concur with that. This sale of council house business thing is... no, I'm sorry, it's wrong. It's wrong. The selling council... Correct me, I am led to believe that forbidding the sale of council houses has never been Labour Party policy.
That's correct.
Right. This is something which people seem to either forget or disguise or choose not to acknowledge. But clearly, if there is a housing shortage, the answer is not to sell council houses, because then the number of houses remains constant. But the number of houses available diminishes.
Well, it only remains constant if you stop building council houses, which is what's happened during Margaret Thatcher's premiership.
Quite so.
Until the advent of the Thatcher government, indeed even during the first few years, because it took them a few years to run down the house building programme, there was a ready supply of new houses, new council houses coming onto the market year in, year out under both Conservative and Labour governments. And it's only really under this, under Thatcher's regime, that bipartisan policy between the two national parties has gone to the winds.
Right.
Whilst there were new houses being built, it didn't really matter whether you were selling council houses or not, because the stock was constantly being replenished.
Precisely. Could you perhaps, since time is now pressing, Councillor, could you perhaps put all this into a nutshell?
Yeah, the local authority housing departments are going to have to wake up, they're going to have to find out what the tenants want, and they're going to have to change a lot of their ideas if they're going to survive.
Otherwise what?
Otherwise, they're going to have a lot of staff being made redundant, and they're going to lose their houses.
Why? Because tenants will opt to go into the private sector?
Tenants will walk out in droves.
And go to the private sector where, according to people who speak about these matters, they will be, in fact, they run a chance of being worse off.
Almost certainly they will be worse off, but of course, at the time that the tenants take the vote, and it doesn't necessarily need a majority of the tenants to vote to move under the legislation. The time that the tenants take the vote, they will simply perceive it as being a better option. And will probably rue the day for many years.
Words of warning from Councillor Bagnall, interest declared. I thank you. There we are. I wonder how embarrassed he is that I didn't remember that he's a councillor. Anyway, Moss Side next. Oh, God, we've got a lot to do, so little time to do it in. Paul Reed in Moss Side.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Jim?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've seen that on the news tonight about where Margaret Thatcher got mobbed by all them shoppers and the people who were against her.
in Australia.